Hello, this is Gary Crowley with DoItYourselfJointPainRelief.com, and this is video 2 of 4 videos for pelvic girdle pain relief. In video 1, we released all the big strong muscles in your hips by using tennis balls and baseballs and softballs, lacrosse balls, wherever you fit in there. That seems to work the best, but tennis ball can do the whole thing. In this video, we're going to release your lower back muscles because a lot of these nerves that come out of your low back run through your pelvis. And we're going to make sure your tailbone is free and doesn't have any tight tissue kind of on it that we can release. And then we're going to release this little muscle called your Tensor fasciae muscle on the side of your hip that becomes your IT band. Any of these being tight can again be causing that pelvic girdle pain you're trying to get rid of. So generally for the low back, I only use a tennis ball for the low back and for the tailbone, and generally for the tensor fasciae. And I'm actually going to take my belt off for the tensor fasciae. And but first thing we're going to do is we're just going to take this tennis ball, going to put it under here's your hip bone. You probably want to find that hip bone on that basically where your hips begin and your low back begins right there, and put that tennis ball just to the side of your spine and just put a little body weight into it. See if it's tender. Really not too tender in me, but you just scoot it up, scoot it around. Well, there's a little tender spot, kind of right at the intersection of my lumbar vertebra and my hip bone. There's a little spot, and so I just put as much body weight as you can relax into, you don't have to kill yourself, and then I just make that tissue move. Again, I'm doing the tennis ball press technique, and my techniques page explains this in a little more detail, but basically that ball stays in one spot while I press on the tissue, and then I make that tissue move, and then that spot lets go. And then now I'm going to come out, an inch or so, and just from my spine, before I was right along the edge of it, there's a little spot along basically where my hip bone and my low back come together, and that lets go, and then I move up a little bit, not too much there, then I just go to the other side. Start at the very bottom of my low back where it meets my hips, and check that out, and there's really nothing there for me. I come up a little bit. Well, there's a little something, probably from the way I sit at the computer or something. And again, that ball's in one spot, and I'm just making that tissue under the ball move. And now I'm going to come out just an inch or so, check out all that tissue there. And now I see there's a spot. I get down on, again, where my low back meets my pelvic bone. And again, I'm out a little bit from my spine, but there's a good little spot. That low back muscle called your quadratus lumborum muscle, it's about yay wide. So I'm just kind of making sure I cover it first next to my spine and then out a little bit. But that lets go. That's a little stubborn, so I'm going to focus here for a minute. See if I can get that. You can cheat. You can pull on your leg with your arm if you want. There it goes. See, now that tissue is releasing because my cerebellum in the top of my brainstem is saying, he wants that tissue to function. He's making it move while he's pressing on it, and that really gets its attention, and then it will say, okay, let's release that tissue. So that's your low back, and now your tailbone, right? So your tailbone is just your sacrum, this triangle bone right here, and I'm just going to take the ball and I'm going to put it under, right, so I'm on the bone. And first I want to just go kind of down the middle of the bone to make sure I don't have a lot of tissue gunked up there or it's tender. People who commute a lot, if you have a long commute to work, or if you're a super mom that lives in your car driving your kids to every practice in town, a lot of times from sitting in those car seats, this tailbone will get kind of gunky, and that tissue shortens and tightens, and your tailbone will be tender. So there's a spot for me. Again, probably more from computing than driving. But I just move my leg, get that tissue to release. There it goes. Nice. And then I can feel that, okay, that let go, but I can feel just a little over to the side. Yeah, so now I'm a little more near the edge of my tailbone, and I'll probably, this is my tailbone now. I was going down the middle of it. Now I'm going to kind of go a little more down the sides of it. Yeah, and this left side's got a little bit of stuff going on. Who knows what I'm doing when I'm building these web pages with my pelvis, but it does let go. And you might have a more stubborn spot. Some spots are more stubborn than others. And but there's my tailbone, and that's your tailbone, your low back, and now your tensor fasciae lata. Basically, if you find the very side top of that hip bone and then come down about an inch, you'll find there's a muscle right there. So here's that hip bone, very side, come right down. That's muscle called your tensor fasciae lata. And all you're going to do, it's a small muscle, you know, yay big. You're just going to lay on your side and see how tender it is. And if it's tender, painful, then you basically are going to want to press into it with that ball and make that leg move. Now this side, nothing for me. But this side, I have a feeling I'd better look at what I'm doing on the computer, because this whole, not too much there, not too much. Let me find there's a little spot. And again, you're just, there it is. Oh yeah, so when I do that, it actually feels kind of good. And then it lets go. But all these muscles, we just want them free because they're going to affect how your pelvis sits. And so these are your two. So low back, right along the edge of the spine, and then out a little bit. Tailbone, on your tailbone, and kind of on the edges of your tailbone. And then your tensor fasciae lata. Now self-assess. How much did this step 2 video help? And how much, what needs more work? What do you need to go back to? And after you do that, I look forward to seeing you at video 3. Thank you for your time.